Welcome to the Helm developer call. Today is Thursday, March 18th, 2021. Reminder, this call is being recorded, and so speak wisely. Today there are no outstanding announcements, so we'll move right into the discussion, and we have Mark with the needs pick process.
All right, I just, in the context of doing builds and me trying to think, can I help out with release builds, feeling guilty that it's always the same people doing it. I was trying to follow the pick process, and maybe it's me, I didn't find documentation on it. So, I mean, it should be pretty obvious, but when I look at the PRs that have pick, we find some that are, for much older versions. So I wanted to see what could be cleaned up, how you guys figure out what needs to be cherry picked.
Or even as just a risk.
And stuff like that. So does anybody, there's only 3 maintainers. I don't know if you want to postpone this discussion, or if you're familiar enough with the pick process that you can enlighten me. And
so I helped develop the pick strategy stuff, so I can probably try and help. So you're picking off of the master branch and onto the long running 3 point, what are we at now? 4, 5, 2, 1, picking off
3,
onto the
5,
bug fix branch, and there are still some that are marked needs pick, even though they look like they're merged.
Well, if I look at the query that just says, show me the needs pick that don't have the picked tag, there's well, I just did it. How many do we have? We have, what does it say? 40. There's 40 of them.
Whoa, that's probably.
And, if you start scrolling down, there's a whole bunch on 3.3, there's 3.2s. So I'm not sure how, Farina does it when it's time to figure out what to pick, but it must be annoying.
I mean, the good thing is there's no harm in repicking something. The bad thing is if there are that many, that's a lot of work to figure out which ones weren't picked. Because if you try and repick, Git will just say, oh, this one's already in this branch.
So is the correct process? Yeah, so is the correct process to remove needs picked once you have picked it? Or like, what's the ideal?
Add a new label called picked. So there's needs picked and then picked. And yeah, chances are really good that the vast majority of those were moved a long, long time ago. But
yeah, I'm sure nothing's been forgotten. It's just, basically it comes down to, is there a better query to figure out what's supposed to be picked, so you only get the ones that are. But I found some that were, for example, they had the needs pick when they ended up in a minor release. So that, I mean, and like the original minor release, that should not happen from my understanding. So
yeah, and it's possible that what you've noticed is that when you do a minor release, the things that were pre-picked for a patch release don't get marked as picked, right? Because as soon as you do a minor release, you create a new branch straight off of the main branch. And
something I didn't realize that I just realized when you said it is that we didn't have a schedule before. So a minor release could have surprised, something would have been marked as needs pick, and we don't know yet if it's going to go in a minor or in a patch.
Yeah.
So, but now that we have the schedule, maybe it'll settle down a bit.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. So chances are probably if you go back to the last minor and select out only the ones that have needs pick from the last minor onward, those are probably the only ones that are likely to actually need anything. So that doesn't actually make things all that much easier.
No, but I'm willing to go back and kind of add the picked process, the picked label if it needs to be, or remove it. So I just wanted to see if I understood the process well. But basically, you put a needs pick when you need it to go in the patch branch, and you put a picked when you're done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So is the resolution that Mark is going to go in and change the ones that are currently labeled in a confusing way?
I'm going to try to, and when in doubt, I will abstain.
All right, sounds like Farina's having networking problems, so we'll move on to Simon.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we've been having problems getting the linter to pass with some object names. So I think in 330 there was a change to add name validation, and the validation is just on a a simple regex that applies to all object names. The issue is that Kubernetes has different validation rules for different object kinds. So while that applies to the majority of rules, it's not all of them. I think quite a few issues have sort of come up where users have tried or have had the linter fail to validate, especially some of the RBAC names. And I think, in a standard Kubernetes install, it's quite common to have the RBAC names separated with colons, and these fail the linter. So I know that the preference, and there's been another PR for this as well, which I totally agree with the feedback, is that there should be some way to infer from the Kubernetes API, whether or not the object name passes validation. I looked and I just can't figure out a way of doing it. The only way I can see of doing it is to match on the object kind and just run the separate, whatever rule that object kind has. So I went through the Kubernetes code base and I just looked at every object type and I duplicated the validator for those names. It's really brittle, but just hoping to kind of get some movement on this, because it's blocking us from doing releases basically. This is particularly important. Some of the marketplaces that use Helm as a backend, they of course run the linter as part of their review process for third-party contributions. So I can't do something like change the naming structure of our RBAC objects in a patch release. That's quite a big change for us. So that's kind of, I don't really have much more to add than that. I'm totally happy to work on any improvements to the PR, but just hoping to get some way forward on this.
Adam, who normally is on this call, is the one who had worked on that security patch that resulted in that behavior. So if you want to drop the PR link, oh, there's the PR link. I can ask him to take a look at it and review it, because that code's probably pretty fresh in his mind from that.
I'm looking at it right now. It looks good. Is there any way to pull those? You're doing like case pod node secret. Is there any way to pull those from the Kubernetes
No,
libraries? No.
I looked and there really wasn't.
The problem, as I recall, is that the API server in Kubernetes does the validation after accepting the manifest as well formed. So all the checks for whether or not a Kubernetes manifest are well formed happen in one place. And then the name validation happens sort of ad hoc several layers deeper in the API server, which basically means there is no straightforward way whatsoever to call this. So Simon, I'm actually impressed that you went through all the trouble of finding that out, because it took us a long time to unravel all of that.
I wish there was a better way. I just couldn't find it.
So in terms of path forward, I know we have bug fixes coming out April 14th, and then a feature release coming in May. Butcher, what's your sense of whether this is what you would consider a bug fix or a new feature?
Yeah, I think this is definitely a bug fix, because we introduced it in a minor in a patch release on a security release and unintentionally broke something.
Okay, so that release is planned for April 14th. So do we think we can get this PR reviewed by then? So it can be in that one?
Yeah, I think so. Josh, do you want to do the first review on it, and I'll see if I can wrangle Adam into doing the second review on it.
Yeah, I can look at this later today. Let me
Okay.
bookmark it.
Thanks, everyone. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Simon, for putting the time in.
So with that, I think that that's the end of what we had planned. Really short call. If anyone has anything to talk about, we can talk about it, or we can get back 17 minutes.
I came 2 minutes late. We didn't talk about the contributor summit at all, did we?
Oh, we did not. You should talk about that. Butcher?
So the contributor summit is April 6th. We've got the schedule pretty much finalized, the speakers finalized, which means if you signed up to be a speaker in this room, you're on the hook now. The registrations have gone, I believe we're over 90 with a 100-person cap. So we're very, very close to being full. I believe we reserved a couple of spots over the 100 limit if for invite only. So if you are a core maintainer and have somebody you want to make sure to invite, I believe we have something like 4 of those remaining too. So if you want to come, definitely sign up. Yep, links there in the chat. And we're looking forward to it at this point. I think it's just prep work on our side. We've already tested the platform and gotten the agenda finalized and everything. I don't think there are any other things about the contributor summit, so I'll pass it back.
So it looks like Matt Farina just joined, so maybe we can talk about his thing, but can we do assignments for next week? Does anybody want to do moderator notes or triage?
We had Jasper sign up already for notes. Thank you, Jasper.
I can moderate.
What?
Oh,
go ahead. If you want to moderate, I'll take triage.
I prefer moderating. I don't do triage. So sorry about that.
That was easy enough. All right, Matt Farina, do you want to talk about Go version stuff?
Sure. Sorry I'm late. My internet provider just dropped out the HTTP ports for a little bit, it turns out. Everything went dead on just those ports. So I wanted to talk about dropping Go 1.14 support in our builds. There's a pull request to bring in an update to Cobra, and Cobra dropped Go 1.14 support or below 1.14 support. So if we pull that in, that means Helm won't build on less than Go 1.14. And I just wanted to make sure that's okay and talk it out to see if anybody had an issue with it. Since that's no longer a supported version of Go, I'm okay with it.
So if I may, Farina, I just want to clarify I think the question, we need to ask the question, but the release of Cobra 1.12 removed the support for officially supporting 1.14. Then that release was kind of done surprised. Nobody expected it. So then when the guy who did it realized there was this potentially breaking change, he did an emergency release, which was 1.13, which put back the 1.14 support, but it's coming, right? Cobra is not going to be supporting 1.14 soon. So the question still remains, but for this particular PR, we could take it. We could take 1.13 without even asking the question if we wanted.
For reference, the only supported versions of Go by the Go team are 1.15 and 1.16.
We're already pointing to 1.16 ourselves, right?
Yes. Does anybody see an issue with it? All right, we got our answer then.
I think if it's going to break, people are going to have many other problems that aren't just Helm. So
Yeah.
it's not like we're going to be able to keep Kubernetes or anything else supporting old Go for them forever.
Yep.
Especially given the changes in 115.
So, all right. I just want to bring it before everyone. We'll get that merged in. That was it.
Thank you for that.
So I'll hand it back.
I guess that's it. I had one question. I was hoping
Oh, Josh, we did have Butcher have one more thing.
I
Sorry.
missed that.
I think you missed it in the chat. Yes.
Okay, go for it. I
Yeah,
can't see it.
just as a note, a whole bunch of people were notified by GitHub that between February 4th and February 5th, there was a bug in GitHub's actions that could have potentially allowed someone to commit to a main or master branch on a repo. We got the email. We audited everything yesterday using the GitHub audit logs and some manual checks, verified that no binaries were tampered with, no commits were inserted in an unauthorized way, did the whole thing. So just wanted to let everybody know that we did take a look at that and that it did come out all clear for that. I also audited a few of Helm's upstream dependencies like Sprig and found the same thing. It was untampered with. So just in case you got those GitHub emails and were worried that something could have happened, we took care of it.
Awesome. So I just had a quick question. I was doing the triage duties this week, and upon merging PRs, do we have any rules like among the maintainers about squashing versus merge commits?
I will
So-
say there is no consistency.
There technically was a rule that all things were supposed to be squashed before merge, but I don't think we have enforced that rule in 2 years.
Is it even documented anywhere?
I'm not sure if it is anymore. It was part
Um,
of to really dig back, it was part of the Deis workflow standard rules for PR merging, and we just kind of borrowed those and kept using them for a while, and then eventually they fell off the document, or they were always pointing to the Deis repos, and eventually we pulled them out and stuff like that. So I don't think we currently have any rule.
Okay.
Are you
so
guys
squash.
against?
So squash.
I was curious. Are you against keeping the commits if the submitter, consciously split them up in logical units? No.
I've actually always liked doing it that way, because then you get then when you read back through the issue queue and see, oh, did you change this? Can you do this? You can actually go back to the commits and see where things were changed. But some people really like the clean Git history, and I'm not terribly opinionated. So really, if somebody wants to propose and in the form of whatever documentation change, that would probably be a good thing.
Okay, so it sounds like we don't have an answer to that, but that's okay.
And I will say between maintainers, people are entirely inconsistent, sometimes even amongst themselves. A single maintainer might do it one way sometimes and one way another. And the reason I figured that out is when I go to cherry pick commits, I've got to decide, do I cherry pick the merge commit, which if it's squashed, or do I have to cherry pick the individual commits if they didn't squash it? And that's how I can kind of tell. And I've noticed we are incredibly inconsistent in our handling of this.
Yeah, but Farina, does that maybe the criteria is, does it make it much harder for you or whoever does the release if there's 15 releases in a PR, commits in a PR?
It definitely does, because you have to cherry pick 15 commits over, but those things show up about maybe twice a year. It's usually between one, it's almost always one, or maybe it goes up to maybe 3. The case where it's a lot of them is just really rare. So it's not that big of a deal.
Okay.
Except for the one time it shows up and you're just like, oh, I've got to do it. Oh, well.
And you're right, Farina, that is one side of it. The other side is, I'm sure you've all experienced the pull requests that you've carefully gone through and annotated a bunch of stuff on different lines. And then people are like, great, squash everything down, force push. And you're like, now I have to literally re-review this whole thing. That's fantastic, which is really frustrating from the reviewing side of things.
For the
So-
record, I am one of the people who does not squash. Even though I do have to deal with more cherry picking, I am one of the people who does not squash.
I don't believe in rewriting history. So I want to see what really happened. That's how you solve problems.
I'm also of that school of thought.
For what it's worth, the peanut gallery agrees.
Hashtag ops life. Looking at a clean, history does not help you solve the weird corner cases.
Sorry, I saw a squirrel with a strangely colored tail here. Okay, so it sounds like squash, or no, it sounds like don't squash. All right, we'll call it a day here. Thank you, everybody. We will talk to you next week.
Thanks.
Good week, everyone.